Independence after surgery is not about proving you can do everything without help. It's about having the right support available so you can move more safely and with less frustration. Are you ready to get back to what you love after knee replacement? The Total Knee Success Podcast is your trusted guide with practical tips, evidence-based strategies, and no fluff. It's not personal medical advice, just solid education to help you manage pain, regain mobility, and get back to living the life you love. Let's dive in. Welcome back to the Total Knee Success Podcast. I'm Michelle. Over the last several episodes, we've been focusing on what to do before surgery. We talked about stiffness and range of motion, quadricep strength and activation, stamina, walking, and what you can practice ahead of time so that the first couple of weeks after surgery feel more familiar. Today, we're taking the next step and shifting our focus to what happens after surgery. Specifically, today, we're going to talk about 5 things patients consistently tell me they used during those first 2 weeks after knee replacement. By the end of this episode, you'll have a clearer understanding of which tools can help make those early days feel more manageable, and why these particular items come up again and again when patients look back on their recovery. Before we get started, I want to remind you that this podcast is for educational purposes only. It's not medical advice. Always follow the recommendations of your surgeon, physician, and physical therapist, because your health history, medications, incision care instructions, and activity guidelines are specific to you. One of the most common questions I hear before surgery is, what do I need to prepare? People ask this at all different stages. Some a month before surgery when they're getting organized and making lists. Others ask a week before surgery when it suddenly feels very real. And it's easy to understand why this happens. People often turn to online advice and recommendations when preparing for surgery, and it can quickly feel like there are countless items being suggested as essential. The problem is that most of these lists are created without much context. Some of the products are useful, some are unnecessary, some are helpful only in very specific situations, and some end up sitting in a closet untouched after surgery. So today, I want to simplify things. These are not products that everyone needs to rush out and buy, and they are not requirements. Instead, these are tools that seem to come up most often when patients tell me what actually helped during those first couple of weeks at home. When I think about the challenges of those early weeks, I think about swelling, comfort, mobility, and independence. Most of the frustrations people experience after surgery can be traced back to one of those 4 areas. If a tool helps address one of those challenges, it earns my attention. If it does not, I'm usually less interested. Let's start with the first item, which probably will not surprise you, and that's cold therapy. Many people expect me to say an ice machine, and for some patients that's absolutely true. Many surgeons send patients home with a cold therapy machine. Depending on where you live and what your surgeon prefers, you may hear names like Polar Care, Cold Rush, Game Ready, or Iceman. If your surgeon provides one, there's a good chance you'll use it frequently during those first couple of weeks. The reason is simple. Swelling becomes one of the main challenges after surgery, and it can affect nearly everything. It influences comfort, motion, walking, sleep, and even how easily the quadriceps activate. Swelling has a way of inserting itself into almost everything you're trying to accomplish. And your knee is coming by this honestly. It's what happens after surgery. A cold therapy machine can make icing more convenient because you're not constantly going back and forth to the freezer. Many patients appreciate that simplicity. However, if you're purchasing something yourself, I often recommend considering a large, flexible gel cold pack. The larger wraparound versions, usually around 11 by 14 inches, tend to work well because they can cover more of the knee. A small ice pack only treats part of the area, while a larger one can wrap around the front and sides and the back for more complete coverage. It's important to ice the front and the back of the knee and to have good coverage above and below the joint. Another advantage of a gel cold pack is that it remains useful long after knee replacement. Years from now, when you overdo a weekend project, maybe you strain your back in the garden or need cold therapy for another injury, that same cold pack will still be there in your freezer, and it's often the more economical choice. Many patients who have a cold therapy machine still end up using a gel cold pack as well. The machine may be ideal when they're settled into a chair for a longer period, but the gel pack becomes the quick and easy option when they want something simple. It's also pretty portable. It's really not whether one option is better than another, It's that making cold therapy easy increases the likelihood that you'll use it consistently. And consistency is what tends to make the biggest difference. Always remember to have a cloth between your skin and the cold pack to protect your skin from irritation and damage due to the cold. If your surgeon gives you specific instructions how long or how often to use cold therapy, follow those instructions. The second item on my list is a leg elevation wedge pillow. It may not sound exciting, and if you mention it to someone before surgery, they might not think much of it, but after surgery, many patients quickly understand its value. A common setup involves stacking 3 or 4 pillows to elevate your leg. At first, this seems like a simple solution. Over time, though, the pillows start to shift. Your leg moves, your knee rotates, and the entire arrangement slowly collapses. What seems easy becomes frustrating, having to constantly restack those pillows. A dedicated wedge pillow solves that problem by providing a stable and consistent place to rest your leg. It's best if this is done with your leg extended out as far as you comfortably can have it. This makes elevation easier to maintain, and when you combine elevation with that cold therapy we talked about before, you are addressing one of the biggest challenges of the early phase after surgery. There's another benefit to using a wedge pillow that people don't always expect. It reduces decision fatigue. During the first 2 weeks after surgery, everything feels more cumbersome than usual. You're managing medications, exercises, appointments, meals, sleep interruptions, and movement around the house. Small frustrations can add up quickly. If your elevation setup works reliably every time, that's one less thing you have to think about. During those early days, that kind of simplicity is incredibly valuable. The third item on my list is compression socks. It's important to note that recommendations for compression vary, so you should always follow the instructions provided by your surgical team. Some surgeons recommend them routinely, while others have different protocols. When compression is part of the plan, many patients find it helpful. One thing that often surprises people after surgery is how far swelling can extend. Most expect swelling around the knee, but they don't always anticipate swelling in the calf, ankle, or foot. It can be surprising to look down and see that your ankle appears much larger than usual. Compression socks are not a cure-all. They do not replace movement, walking, exercise, or elevation. However, they can be a useful addition to your overall swelling management strategy. They're also a bit of a necessary nuisance in some cases. They can be frustrating to put on, especially when you're already sore or stiff. If you do need to wear them, it can help to choose a pair that feels a little more like you, something a little more comfortable, or even slightly more stylish than the standard hospital white. Remember to get clearance from your surgeon or your medical team and make sure the compression level is what your physician prescribes and is correct for you. Before we move on to the fourth item, I want to share something with you. One of the reasons I created the Total Knee Success Insider newsletter is because there are so many questions that don't fit neatly into a podcast episode. Sometimes it's a quick tip. Sometimes it's a common mistake that I see frequently, and sometimes it's a research update or an observation from working with patients. If you enjoy the podcast and would like those additional insights delivered directly to your inbox, make sure you're signed up for the newsletter. Just click on the link in the show notes. It's totally free. I have also put together a link to a list of the 5 items we're discussing today, so you can take a closer look and decide what makes sense for your situation. Not everything will be right for everyone. The goal is simply to help you think through your options before surgery, rather than trying to figure everything out after you get home. If you choose to make a purchase through that link, it may help support the podcast at no additional cost to you. The fourth item patients tell me they use over and over during the first 2 weeks is a supportive shoe that's easy to put on. This sounds almost too simple until you're standing at the edge of the bed or sitting at the edge of the bed, trying to get ready to get up and walk around, and realizing that bending down to tie laces is not especially pleasant. During the first 2 weeks, walking is not usually about distance or speed. It's about getting up safely, moving regularly, and building a rhythm with your day. I'm not talking about those loose slippers that slide on or old house shoes with worn-out soles. You want something secure enough to stay on your foot with enough traction to help you feel steady when you're walking through your home or going on an outing. The first day home is not the time to discover that your footwear is too tight, too loose, or uncomfortable around the heel. So try it before surgery and remember that feet and ankles swell afterward. The research around knee replacement consistently reminds us that physical function after surgery does not improve in a perfectly straight line for everyone. Some patients are walking around the house fairly confidently early on, while others need more time, more support, and more repetition before daily mobility feels smoother. Practical footwear choice does not solve every issue, but it helps create a safer and more predictable setup for the movement you're already trying to build. Okay, we're to the fifth item. The fifth item on my list is a leg lifter strap, and this is one of those tools that patients don't always understand until they need it, and then they immediately understand why it made the list. After knee replacement, many patients notice that their quadriceps feel weaker or more difficult to activate after surgery, and that makes it very difficult to lift your leg up. It doesn't mean you're doing anything wrong. These muscles are inhibited by the pain and swelling and the effects of surgery. Researchers have studied quadriceps activation deficits after knee procedures for many years, and this remains one reason early strengthening and activation work are such a major focus in rehabilitation. In everyday life, that difficulty shows up in very practical ways. You may be able to stand and walk with your walker, but lifting your surgical leg into bed can feel like a completely different task. Getting onto the couch may be awkward. Moving your leg into position for exercises may take more effort than expected early on. Getting in and out of the car, even if you're not doing it often, can feel like a project. A leg lifter gives you a way to assist your leg without depending on someone else every time you need to reposition. I like the leg lifter because it supports independence and provides a way for you to help yourself. Independence after surgery is not about proving you can do everything without help. It's about having the right support available so you can move more safely and with less frustration. A leg lifter can help you guide your leg onto the bed, onto the couch, or into a better position for rest. And it can also reduce the amount of repeated strain on someone who's helping you at home. The key is to use it as an assist, not as a replacement for trying to activate the muscles in your leg. Your physical therapist will still want you working on quadriceps activation, knee motion, walking, and the exercises that fit your stage of healing. The leg lifter is not there so the leg never has to work. It's there to help you manage the in-between moments when your leg is not yet doing everything you want it to do. When you look at these 5 items together, you can see that they're not random. Cold therapy and elevation support, swelling management and comfort, compression socks when approved by your surgeon can become another part of the early swelling strategy. Supportive shoes that are easy to put on make it easier to walk safely and consistently. A leg lifter can help you with daily transfers and repositioning that can become surprisingly difficult during the first couple of weeks. This list does not guarantee an easy first 2 weeks. It doesn't replace your surgeon's instructions, your medication plan, your physical therapy or walking program, or the help you may need from family or friends. These tools are not shortcuts, they're supports. They help reduce some of the barriers that can make the early phase feel harder than it needs to feel. There's also no perfect list that applies to every person. Someone who lives alone may prioritize independence tools differently than someone who has a caregiver at home all day or most of the day. Someone with a very low bed may have a different transfer challenge than someone with a higher bed. Someone who receives home care for the first 2 weeks may not get in and out of the car very much, while someone else may be traveling to outpatient therapy within days of surgery. That's why I don't want you to think of this episode as a set of rules. It's a way to think ahead. If you already have surgery scheduled, take a few minutes and picture a normal day at home during the first week. Picture how you'll elevate your leg. Picture the path from your bed to the bathroom. Picture what shoes you'll wear when you get up. Picture how you will get your surgical leg into bed at night when you're tired. Those details may seem small, but they're often the details that decide whether the day feels smoother or more frustrating after surgery. One thing I've learned from patients over the years is that preparation doesn't need to be dramatic to be useful. Sometimes preparation looks like clearing a walking path or placing your cold pack where you can reach it easily. Sometimes it looks like setting up one reliable chair with your elevation wedge, water, medications, phone charger, and anything else you reach for often. Sometimes it looks like trying on your shoes before surgery and making sure they actually work for you. There's a practical calm that comes from having fewer decisions to make after surgery. You still have to do the work. You still have to listen to your body, follow your instructions, manage those uncomfortable moments, and give yourself time. But when the basic setup is already in place, you're not solving every small problem while tired, sore, and in pain. You're working inside a system that you created ahead of time. As always, use your surgeon's and your therapist's instructions as your guide. If your surgeon provides a cold therapy machine, use it according to their directions. If your surgeon has a specific compression protocol, follow that. If your therapist teaches you a certain way to get in and out of bed or move your surgical leg, practice that method. The tools should support the plan, not compete with it. For a quick look at these recommendations on Amazon, click the link in the show notes, and if you're looking for a simple guide to help you prepare for surgery, Know what to expect and avoid common mistakes? Check out the free 2-week knee replacement launch plan download. Click the link in the show notes or visit totalkneesuccess.com. Looking ahead to episode 84, we're going to continue this conversation with the next 5 tools that can help once you're moving more. That episode will focus more on weeks 2 through 6, when walking, exercise, car transfers, daily tasks, and confidence outside the house often become more important. Thanks for joining me. I'm Michelle, and this has been the Total Knee Success Podcast. This podcast is for educational purposes only. Discover more at totalkneesuccess.com, and be sure to subscribe and share, because every step forward takes you closer to living the life you love.